Yeah, I like that knot and a half, 2 knot kind of area. But it changes so much with moon tides too, that you can't go to a place and say, okay, this place is always going to be the same. You get a lot of fluctuation over the course of the month. So a knot and a half, 2 knots is a real nice current. No, because if you look along the entire coastline, as it moves away from the shoreline, it balances real quick, and you're going to see an average of around 30 in most places, and you can have quite a bit of variance there. The thing you'd want to look at there, if you knew you were in a lighter nitrogen area, is you might want to not put as heavy a load in on your farms. If you knew that you were in an area that was running a little bit lower on that. But you'll find out that we have hot spots in certain embayments and along certain areas, but then it comes to it really goes to an average pretty quick by the time you get even a little bit outside. But it's great that you asked that. I've been working with Gretchen Grebe. She's writing her doctoral thesis on exactly that. And we, for the last 2 or 3 years, have actually been doing microbial studies on our farms of the surrounding water and what it actually is on the kelp. And we're also working with Nicole Price up at Bigelow Labs on that. And we're having really good positive results. We're also working on the antibacterial properties. One of the, what would she be, a physicist, I think, down at the University of New England. We've known all along that there are certain microbial, bacterial properties to seaweeds. It actually has its own kind of anti-fouling. And so we're finding that it's not a problem, that you can have a fairly heavy content in the water, and the kelp is still really pretty clean. And if you look where we've been buying for decades now from China and where they grow it, anecdotally, it sounds like it's pretty true. It looks pretty true also. I'm running 3/8. Yep, I was up to 1/2 inch for a while, and I kept going down, and I've been getting 3 to 5 years out of my line as long as you take care of it, run through it and look at it. But I'm getting away with 3/8. You have to. What we do is we actually run we run every 200 feet. I take 2 7x14 buoys on a piece of PVC, and I set the depth at 7 feet and do a concrete counterweight, and that holds it in place. Because what happens is the seaweed grows if you've got big stipes, because it's releasing oxygen. It sequesters carbon, releases oxygen, it sequesters nitrogen, it sequesters phosphorus. It's really cool stuff. But the stipes, if they get big enough, become hollow. And that oxygen that it's releasing, they fill with oxygen. And so what happens first, your line sinks as it's growing, and then your line wants to float. And so we found basically the optimal buoy weight ratio to keep it real consistent at 7 feet. And then with this new system, it works even better than the old. Because of the plow anchors, you got a tag line, crown line going up on each one right straight from the anchor. You can grab it from behind on your boat, wrap it on the bow, back down, and tension that thing to perfection. It fishes so well, it's unbelievable. I had trouble with my original rigs a little bit. I had good spacing on them, but like you get a real moon tide, you get a real drainer, all of a sudden you get a couple of them together and they can start getting tangled, as you move into bigger, more complicated sites. And so having this new system has just been, it's been really sweet. With the plow anchor, what I do is I usually go about 1/3 of, you do the plow anchor. You've got a line coming up from the back of the plow anchor with a buoy on it, your tag line. You shackle a piece of chain. I usually use about 1/3 chain, 2/3 line for a 3-to-1 scope. That comes up to a buoy on top. And the buoy on top is just one of your regular doubled 7x14s. And so that's your first depth setter. And so you come out onto the site, you've got your anchor rigged, you kick it overboard with the tag line, you back down on your 3-to-1 scope, and now you're just backing there and just holding it with the boat, just right on the bow. And so you run your line, and you tie your buoys on and your counterweight on. You run your line through the piece of PVC and tie it onto the anchor rig. You tie your string onto that, and then you just back down. And I'm running 200-foot rigs, 200-foot spools is what I've been running. So you back down 200 feet, you put in another set of double buoys and a counterweight. You start your next spool, you go 200 more feet, you tie into your double buoy and counterweight, and you back down your anchor rode the first 2/3, you get to the chain and the anchor, you drop it, you take your tag line, back down on it, and she's taut. Yeah, you can put them in. That was one of the many things I experimented with, was how early I could put them in. And because once again, the earlier you put them in, the earlier you can potentially harvest them or the bigger they can be at the end of the season. So I've actually gotten them in as early as August 30th now. When I first started, the top scientist in Charlie is really good. Charlie Yarish, Professor Yarish out of the University of Connecticut. He's been playing around with the seed forever. He's the one who helped me develop the seed technology or take it to a commercial scale. And initially we were told you can only get source tissue in September. You can only seed in late October and November. And we found out that you can take it earlier if you're in a place where you don't have conflict with the lobster gear. Main reason we set October, November was because that's when most of the lobster gear has already been pulled. In May, that's when it's ready to come out. It's going to start getting biofouled. It's not going to look as nice. So April, May is the perfect harvest time, which is before the majority of people are putting any inshore gear down. And so it makes it real easy. There's nothing you have to do. What I have done in the past, and especially in the early experimentations, was made different products out of the juveniles. If you go out there and when it starts getting 3 and 5 feet long and you've got usable sporophytes, that's what you call the kind of adult plants from the time they're microscopic to 20 feet long. They're always a sporophyte. And you've got that rig I was talking about with the barge that I showed earlier. You can selectively cut the nice ones and use those and make, I was making wraps out of them. If anybody's ever had fish in papillote or fish in a brown paper bag, well, I wrap it in whole kelp leaves and it's kelp or fish in kelpiote and you eat the whole thing. Yeah, and so you make new product. So what I do is I make new products out of things in that situation. And then it's just, they're also just perfect. The market, the chefs are really starting to like the whole cooked sporophytes to use. And if you pick them when they're like 5 feet long, you're getting them before there's any damage to the blades, the whole blades and prime tips, so you can prime shapes, so you can get a premium for that kind of stuff. And if you selectively cut, I've done it as many as 5 times on a length of line. Well, the ones that are kind of growing slow, they just take off when they have more room. It's like the biggest ones start shading the smaller ones. So if you selectively cut down a line, you can actually get multiple harvests through 2 or 3 months. I try to go out every month because I've caught things before. I've caught trees. Trees are the biggest things. You know, you get a good moon tide and the trees start floating around. If they can snag a buoy, it can be the only buoy in 2 miles either way. That tree will find it. It's like a magnet. Funny you should ask that. I haven't dealt with the USDA since yesterday or the FDA since today. Every year the rules get stricter and stricter and it gets harder and harder. You know, and it's just getting, it's getting very onerous. And so the key is for us to make more better products so we can afford to pay people a good price for the product. I mean, I still farm and harvest most of my own myself, but that's starting to change rapidly. And with the success we've had at the last couple of food shows and with a new company that's come into the state, I think we're going to be able to see, we're going to see volume going out finally. You know, that has been the big drawback. I've had people that have wanted to grow for me for years and I'm like, I just can't sell that much yet, or I can't produce that much yet. I just moved from an 800 square foot facility processing floor with external freezers to a 3,000 foot processing floor that's all processing. I think there's at least 5 now.
Really?
Yep.
In Maine?
In Maine. Yeah, they have different profiles. Of course, Shep has been buying forever, Earhart, Maine Coast Sea Vegetables. And I know, he's got some very, he's doing mostly wild and it's organic, so there's some restrictions on what he can take, but he's starting to work with the farmed. I believe the Maine Seaweed Exchange is buying, my old company is buying, we're buying, and Sea Greens, so is that 6? I think there's 5 or 6 companies now, and 5 years ago, there was me.
And Tollef, your company is called?
Ocean's Balance.
Okay. All right.
I didn't name the new company, my co-founder did.
Oh, right.
Yes. Common sense would tell you that, and reality and Mother Nature would tell you that, but will Mofka tell you that? So you have to jump through some hoops, quite a few hoops to be organic. With the farming, it starts with the seed, and with the wild, it starts with the harvest area. And then there are other steps along the way. So yes, the crop is organic, but to get it certified organic is another deal. About $1,000 worth.
Is it worth it?
Probably in the long run, but like I say, it can be the added headaches, and so we probably will get, like with my kelp puree, I actually make it to the puree, and then I take it to a co-packer, and the co-packer, I could have it organic easily through what I go through, but the co-packer, the only one in the state who can do what I need done, doesn't have an organic rating, so boom, there breaks the chain right there. In theory, a study just done by the University of Maine under the CNET grant said that they see a 20% premium by having organic on the label. I question that if that's across the board, and it was a rather small sampling. And so it doesn't hurt to have organic on there, and it can boost the price, but we're not, I think all natural works really well. It's worked really well for me. The preliminary data has been just fine. We don't have we had actually done, I had earlier done a bunch of testing for heavy metals and came up with non-detectable across the board through a lab in California of all places. It's a real strict one. The arsenic problem that people have been studying has mainly been in digitata and hijiki. Not many others have had it, and that's really been the only heavy metal that we've shown up in quantities that could be detrimental. And they took, the US Organic Association took 40 samples of dried digitata, the same product, from Iceland, tested it in 40 different labs and got 40 different results. This kind of goes because there's no real baseline. What Nicole is doing now is she's establishing a real meaningful baseline, so we're actually going to have some information that will become meaningful because we'll have a starting point. I always look back to the anecdotal side of it. The societies that live coastal communities in Japan and China have been eating it for millennia, and they aren't dropping dead from arsenic. Matter of fact, just the opposite. They have, especially Japan, I think the longest lives of any of us.
Well, that was fabulous. That's a lot of questions, a lot of interest there. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you for the questions.